Hello, dear friends. How are you all? I hope you're keeping well and welcome to What Works X. My name is Nada and I'm part of the KHDA team and I'm joined by my colleagues Magnus and Maya, and today we'll be facilitating today's webinar. It's an honor to be with you all, and despite the difficulties, this has been an interesting few months and for many of us getting through each day. But as we've become more familiar with the new normal, adapting and prioritizing things in our lives, there has been a lot of reflection, and hopefully we'll be able to look back on these times with some profound feelings. So it's really great to be with you again. As you can see on the screen, we'll be using the Menti platform as a way to engage with you all today, our wonderful viewers. So may I please invite you to go to menti.com and enter the code you see on the screen. And Magnus has also entered that code in the chat feature. So I'll just give you a moment to log on to menti.com, enter the code as we wait for others to join us. We'll just give you all a couple of minutes. So in a word, and you can enter up to 3 words at a time, would love to know how you are feeling today. So I'll invite you now to enter a few words there. I was actually having a few challenges today myself, but now that I'm here with you, I do feel energized and can feel your positive energy coming through. So thank you so much. Wow, there's a lot of positive words there. Happy, energetic, great, eager, full stretch. But there's also words such as apprehensive, anxious, overwhelmed, upset. And I can totally relate with all of those words as well. And it's important to recognize that there are those not so happy feelings as well. And it's perfectly normal to feel that way as well. Fantastic. We have, I think, around 50 to 60 people that have logged on so far. And as we wait for that word cloud to further develop, I just want to remind you all why we're here, and we're here because of What Works X. A movement known as What Works began and would have come to change the culture of education in Dubai. What Works X continues to be that sort of platform, but it has been taken to a virtual platform. And it's a series of events that's really anchored in a strength-based approach and focused on collaboration. And today we're talking about well-being, my favorite topic. And I know we have a lot of our well-being champions here online with us today who have worked over the last few years on the Dubai Student Wellbeing Census and on the Adult Wellbeing Survey as well. So welcome to all our wellbeing champions too. Thank you so much. And just going back to that word cloud really quickly, we've had 46 responses. Thank you so much. And there's a nice mix of words there. And I think Katerina will come back to this slide a little bit later on in her presentation. So thank you for your honesty there and for sharing how you're feeling with us today. So moving on to today's webinar, the presentation today is around 20 to 30 minutes long, and it will be followed by a Q&A discussion. Unfortunately, webinars on Teams does not allow for the verbal interactions with the audience, but please do ask questions throughout the presentation by submitting them in the chat Q&A feature to the right of your screen, ensuring your questions are on topic. And then I'll come back at the end with a few questions for your feedback. So it is my greatest pleasure now to introduce Katerina Mancani, Director of Positive Education at Fortes Education. And for those that know Katerina, I'm sure many on this webinar are aware of Katerina's work and know that she's a passionate believer in the importance of well-being and a huge advocate of positive education. And she's worked tirelessly to ensure that well-being and posit is really part of the ethos at her schools. So over to you, Katrina, and thank you so much in advance. We're very grateful for giving up your time and putting together this fantastic presentation. And over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nada, and thank you, KHDA and What Works, for this wonderful opportunity to just to share my thoughts, my work, and the work of all the wonderful people in our schools. And I wish I could hear about all the great things that you are doing in your schools. I know it's not easy since the beginning of this academic year, but I'm sure that you are all putting the well-being of the children in your care at the heart of everything you do. Thank you also, Nada, for this activity at the beginning of the session where we can see how everybody feels. Happy obviously is the top word. And I want to show you some more words that we could use. Just a second, current slide. Okay, so some of you may have seen it. This is the energy and the feelings chart developed by the ruler in Yale and in Yale's emotional intelligence department. And here you can pick up some more words and show them to the students, and they learn the vocabulary of their feelings, and at the same time they can specify how they're feeling at this point in time. With the younger children, you can use pictures, something like that, and by the end of this presentation you will receive a supplement, a document with some links, and you will see the presentation with so many other quadrants like this, with pictures from Inside Out, Harry Potter, even Games of Thrones. Okay, so the topic today is bouncing forward, transforming bad breaks into breakthroughs. So we can call the whole COVID situation that we are in since last academic year as a bad break, but how are we going to break through, and what are we going to do next? That's the topic of my short presentation today. And obviously there is just a surface that I can scratch today, but I hope that I will be able to give you some food for thought. So just a bit about me. My top character strengths are curiosity, love, and gratitude. I've been in Fortis Education for 11 years. I have double roles, so I manage Jumeirah International Nurseries, and at the same time, I lead the whole positive education agenda in both our schools. And I do believe that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Okay, so in the past 6 to 7 months, we experienced a lot of losses. We lost the routine, we lost the structure, we lost some friendship, we lost opportunity and some freedom, right? And we especially felt it during the lockdown at the end of the academic year. But even now, when we come back, the school looks different. And of course, us as teachers and our students notice it, and everybody deals differently with it. Some are more resilient than others, but to be very honest, I thought that I'm quite a resilient person, but it affects even me. I had moments of bereavement and I had moments of anxiety this academic year when I was walking around the school and seeing that it looks different, right? And it takes a bit of acceptance to move forward and to work with it. So safety is a big word now, right? So we want to ensure that students in our care and people on the building are safe physically, right? But how often do we think about psychological safety and what this psychological safety actually means? And we teachers tend to jump straight away into how can we apply it for our students, how can we create the psychological and emotional safety for our students. But I want to start with us. I want to start with staff and, you know, everybody, the teachers, the leaders, even the board of directors. So how are we first going to be physically and psychologically safe in the school? And so what it actually means to be psychologically safe in the school? There are 5 components that I put to the psychological safety, and I spoke about these 5 components with my staff in both Regent and St. Mark's schools in the beginning of the year. So first component is the acceptance that schools are learning organizations. Learning is happening everywhere. So students learn, teachers learn, leaders learn, board of directors learn. And this means involving everyone in the system in expressing their aspiration, building their awareness, and developing the capabilities together. We don't know how to lead the school in this new normal, right? We are all learning it together, right? So we have to accept that we are learning as we go along. So what is actually the learning organization? Peter Senge, the MIT Sloan School of Management professor, just develops it simply as people working together at their best, right? However, how does it apply to schools? So he wrote another book called Schools That Learn. So what is the school that learns? In the school that learns, people like who traditionally may have been suspicious of one another, like parents and teachers, people inside and outside of the school, students and adults, recognize their common stake in each other's future and the future of their community. So our community now recognizes that we're dealing with one common goal. We want to continue operate schools in this current environment, right? And the learning mindset in the school recognizes that we are here to learn and there is always more to learn. And there are 3 components to it. So first of them is humility. And this is a simple recognition that you don't have all the answers and we don't have a crystal ball, right? So I feel that adopting a humble mindset when faced with the complex, dynamic and uncertain world problem like the one we're dealing with right now is simply a realism. So curiosity, which sparks the journey to discovery, and attitude to failure. We teach our students that learning only happens when there is enough psychological safety to dig into failure's lessons carefully. So we teach our students that failure is not a bug of learning, it's a feature. However, how often do we remember that ourselves? So just before we even go into the solutions and into what you can do with students, let us look at the failure and how you can actually fail in the school. So we can have preventable, complex and intelligent failures at our work. So the preventable one are never good news, right? So transport, DT, science experiment mistakes, this is the ones which we definitely need to avoid. The complex failures, right? Almost every process in the school under COVID conditions is susceptible for complex failure. Still not good news. But then we have intelligent failures. They're not fun, but they must be considered good news because of the value they bring. So these are all the unsuccessful trials on the way to innovation, you know, with hybrid teaching, with EdTech. These are the things where you say, I'm going to venture into something unknown. It's very difficult for me to teach children both in the class and at home, but I'm going to try. And most probably I'm going to fail, but we all are going to fail together and learn from our mistakes. So understanding that intelligent failure may happen helps us to understand the second part of learning organization and psychological safety within the school is the notion that our work has become uncertain, challenging, and interdependent. Now, schools are normally quite certain organisms, right? We know when we start the school, we know what we're teaching, we know when the holidays come, but now, frankly, we don't know many of those things anymore. Right? We don't know who's going to be in tomorrow and who's going to be online. We don't know what's going to happen next, whether the class will be closed or not, right? So that creates its own challenges. And we can only survive through it if we are interdependent, if we work as a team now more than ever. And I'm not teaching anybody to fail here, but I just want to bring it to attention that in today's world, sometimes it's not about incompetence, it's about the complexity of the whole situation. And that's why in the schools, the words like the sentences like, I don't know, I need help, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. These sentences nowadays need to be destigmatized and almost brought to the surface. We don't know, we need help, right? We may make mistakes and we are all in this together. And other three phrases, which are simply powerful in shaping the climate, are the words of interest and availability, right? So questions like this. And number three, for creating a psychological safety is understanding why are we here in the school for. There was a question from one of the people who registered about the motivation. So how to motivate ourselves now through difficult times. And I think understanding the purpose of our work is one of the most important things in motivation. So what can influence the answer to this question? So religious beliefs, society, family pressure, age, educational background, all of that shapes our meaning. In positive psychology, the positive purpose is defined as understanding, believing in, and serving something greater than yourself, and deliberately engaging in activities for the benefits of others. If you look at this definition, isn't that teaching? Every day you step into a classroom and you serve something greater than yourself, which is the future of these human beings when they grow up and serve the world. And you're deliberately engaging in these activities for the benefits of others, not your own. So by definition of your job, you already have a purpose. However, it's important to define your own purpose. So create your own purpose statement, which will kind of remind you about your own motivation. So I did this exercise a couple of years ago, and this is the way that I define my purpose. So I want to create a long-lasting positive impact in whatever I do. So the system, structures, transformation I create exist after I'm gone. You know, I'm gone out of the building, I'm gone after this presentation, I'm gone whatever, right? And also looking at your own purpose statement, then looking at the purpose statement of the school organization you work in and seeing if they match. You know, do you believe in the purpose statement of your school? And, you know, do your values match? So number 4, to create the positive safety in the school and staff, proactive inquiry. I mean, we have more questions now than answers, and that's good. We need to keep asking the questions now, right? So what might we be missing? Who has a different perspective? What leads us to think so? This is the time where we need to question every assumption. And the last one is let the creative tension be our fuel. So the creative tension is the gap between the vision and your current reality. And this is another source of energy for the motivation. If there were no gap, there would be no need for any action to move towards the vision. So these are the things that we need to remember as staff for ourselves to create our environment in the team before we even move to the students. So then how do we create physical and psychological safety for students? So there are many things that you can do in the school. And again, once we sort the safety and the psychological safety of the staff, they will come with lots of ideas which are your school specific. There is a supplement, as I said, to this presentation with lots of links that you can explore. But just if I were to sum up the focus, it would be in these 3 points, right? So we need to design for relationship. As you could see now, the students are socially distanced, they're wearing masks, there is a certain layout in the class which prevents them from interaction like they used to have before. Some of the students are in, some of them are not, and that of course affects the relationship. Another point is designing for emotional safety. And then the important point, again, going to proactive inquiry, what new problems have we not anticipated? You know, so constantly evaluating and constantly listening to what's happening in the school to shift the focus. And I guess this is a key phrase here. Being safe and feeling safe aren't the same thing for us as adults and for students as well. So design a relationship by design. So your curriculum. I'm sure you review your curriculum every year and see where you can improve. This year, the most important thing is the word connection, right? So student to student connection, student to teacher connection, connections as people, connections as learners. So do you have a space in your lesson for these connections, right? So for example, in the beginning of the year, in every lesson, the teachers would, in almost every lesson in our school in secondary, teachers would leave a time when they can actually go around and ask students about, you know, fun fact about themselves, right? So that the students can have connections as people. So there are different techniques on how to foster it. So just some ideas, model what a good discussion post or online contribution might look like. Ask students to capture their learning in one photo and then perhaps, you know, talk about that photo. Using digital tools like Flipgrid, where you can create topics for discussions and the students, both who are at home and online, can share their perspectives. And then, you know, visualize learning in an online journal, which can also be then commented by other students. So there are some platforms for it. If you heard about Nearpod is great, and your school can either sign up for Nearpod or you can sign up for it yourself. There is a free account and there is gold account, so it has different functionality. But what Nearpod allows you to do, it allows you to create the interactive lessons, and on top of that, it allows your students to access these lessons either live or from home at another time. You will be able to see their participation, and on top of that, they can contribute to, you know, Padlet style boards, and they can have games in it like Kahoot style, you know. So it's different one than Kahoot and Padlet, but it's also fun. So you can explore Nearpod. I'm sure you heard about Flipgrid. Flipgrid is great, and students like to create the videos there and contribute for different topics. So then next one, relationship by design, facilitation. So when you facilitate the lesson, whether you facilitate it live, online, and hybrid, it's not me who tells you that planning is important. You know that. But planning and presence equals connections and community. So just a little bit of tips here. So provide an outline of discussion points in advance. If you want students to engage with the discussion, it is better if they actually get the points at least 24 hours in advance so that they can prepare. I'm talking, of course, about the older students and those students who are especially in class online, right? So if students know what they will talk about, they will prepare and most probably engage in the discussions. You also enhance the learning environment. Now, if of course you have all the students online, and you could, depending on the rules that you have, ensure that at the point of discussion they're always sitting with their cameras on, and you know, you create the breakout rooms where they have a proper conversation. However, if you have them in the hybrid environment where some of them are in class and some of them at home, perhaps you could put all the students who are at home with their cameras on onto the big screen and ensure that they see each other. and the students who are in class see them, so that at least they can interact with each other. Not ideal, but it works at our school, especially with primary. They really like to have their peers online at all times. So adapt your in-person best practices to online best practices. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've already done it. So Kahoot for recapping, whatever you are using, try to find the option for online, and support discussion using tools. It all depends what medium of communication you use for the online or hybrid learning. It's difficult for me to say. We're using Teams, so we use all the Teams related apps, right? So we do it through OneNote, we do it through Flipgrid and others. But overall, when you communicate with the students, it's important that you manage your tone, so that they basically feel that we are happy to hear them and happy to see them even online. Where do students see you? So do they see you in a lit environment? Can they actually see you? Can they hear you? Can the students see each other? Can they hear each other? Can they connect for fun? So you know how when we connect the students, we straight away want to get into the lesson, but can we give them 5 minutes in the breakout rooms online just for them to have a fun conversation? Do you have the extracurricular activities where students can connect after school online for fun, right? Can you facilitate some board games or some other activities just for fun? Okay, and then the big one here is emotional safety, right? So emotional safety by design through interactions. In the supplement, you will see a link to the emotional coaching website, and they have lots of videos and resources. I really like this resource because it's based on John Gottman's 4 ways of dealing with emotions, and then it kind of gives the resources and understanding of how to deal with it. So I'll stop on it for a little bit. So John Gottman identified these 4 ways of dealing with emotions, and that is our reaction or responses or reasonings to emotions in ourselves or others. So emotion dismissing is where we try to ignore the emotion and cover it up. For example, when we are uncomfortable with that emotion. So for example, if a child hurts himself or upset, we might say, oh, don't worry, it's nothing to worry about, here, have a biscuit. So we're trying to dismiss and move the child on, right? Emotion disapproving is when adult actually thinks emotions are a sign of weakness. They shouldn't be given attention, they need to be ignored and really shouldn't be felt. So a very much disciplinary approach to dealing with emotions and emotion regulation. So the laissez-faire or permissive approach to emotions is when adults are aware that emotions can be difficult or uncomfortable, and they can empathize with that, but they don't really know what to do with these emotions, right? So also they can understand what child experiences. The child isn't able to get any guidance. Right? And there are certain effects of dismissing, disapproving, and laissez-faire ways of dealing with emotions. They may seem to work in the short term, but on the longer term, the child is not helped. And child does not learn how to recognize the different emotions and how they feel and to label them. They aren't given an opportunity to understand why they occur or have the opportunity to learn how to self-regulate and problem solve. And that is how an emotion coaching approach is different. So on the emotion coaching stage, the adult supports the child to manage the emotions they're experiencing in that moment. The adult recognizes that all emotions are acceptable, but not all the behavior is acceptable, right? So in an emotion coaching, Yes, and emotional coaching is based on the 4 steps that you can see on the slide. And step 1 is all about the adult recognizing the emotions the child is feeling and empathizing with them, showing them that the adult understands, right? And the step 2 is about validating child's emotions, showing them that you know that how they feel, and helping them to communicate it through verbal and non-verbal language. In labeling the emotion, we are helping the child to learn how to verbally express their feeling and needs. So by saying, I can see you seem angry, I understand, or you seem upset, it helps the child to link a word to what it is they're feeling. So step 1 and step 2 help the child to calm down and show them that you care through your empathetic approach and through your language. Now on step 3 and 4, steps 3 and 4 are all about helping the child to learn what is and what is not acceptable in the behavior, and helping them to problem solve and to learn what's next, right? And exploring what can be different, what can be done differently the next time. So it is the same conversation about emotion, but once it's broken into these steps, it actually is used as an opportunity to learn and to change the behavior on the long term. Okay, so next, emotional safety aspect. So emotional safety by design, language, right? I'm sure that the language in your schools is, child friendly, but sometimes I see that the signs that are put in various places around Dubai can be quite intimidating, like don't sit here, or step away 2 meters apart, right? So the emotional safety by design in the environment is when the language is positive, like some of the signs here. Like PJ must stay 2 meters apart to keep safe, right? Something friendly for the students. And of course, the stories we tell children. There are so many stories out there about the current events that can be accessed and explored. The resilience. So in these unprecedented times, it's crucial that we think about our families and our communities and our schools' resilience, right? And I like this resilience framework. I have shared the details and the links to more information in the supplement. But the Boing community in the UK, together with the Centre of Resilience for Social Justice and the University of Brighton, have been working on resilience for many years. So they have developed some useful tools and approaches that suggest practical things that people, teachers, families, and communities can do when times are especially tough, right? And of course, the very familiar to many of us in Dubai, PERMA. So flourishing in stressful times, ideas for self-care using Martin Seligman's PERMA model. There are a lot of ideas here, from emotions to accomplishment. And I'm sure you can add to it everything that you do in school, but just this one is just for starter. There was a question from one of the registrations about how can we apply a PERMA model in this new normal, and here is just a food for thought. Okay, and just to end, this is the time where we have to be curious and agile, right? So we can't create this new normal without actively searching for new ways and being agile to pivot as we go along. And that's the end. Thank you so much for listening, and I would love to hear the questions, to read your questions.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I'll just wait for you to mute your mic. Great. And Maya, you've got the camera?
No, Nada, please share the camera. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Katrina. That was a fantastic presentation. We've got a few questions that have come through, and I'll just go to the first one. Should we still observe teachers' lessons for accountability, or should we adopt more of a team teaching approach? Katrina, this is a question we received during the registration process, and I think you could give some insights on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is back is, what are we trying to achieve? Why do we need the observations? Is it for accountability purposes, or is it for ensuring that we are all on the same page with our practice? So whether you call it observation or team teaching approach, the most important thing is that everything you do together, you do for the so that the practice in the school or your practice improves, right? And then you can make your lesson delivery and students' outcomes better. So whatever makes sense for that school. But I would say that, of course, the formal observations right now are a bit stressful for the teachers.
Thank you, Katrina. Now, you also spoke about purpose and motivation, and this question has come through as well. How can you remain motivated during these really unprecedented times? Can you share perhaps inspirational tools and techniques and strategies that can help us as teachers?
Yeah, so there are tools in the supplement. But again, I would move to the same point on purpose. If we know why we're doing it, whether we have intrinsic motivation or extrinsic, then I guess it is the point. The point is to remind ourselves constantly about that purpose.
Yes, I think all of us are reminding ourselves of purpose every day, and it gets difficult. It's not just teachers, but even the students going to school and you know, parents. It is a struggle every day, but finding that purpose really does, I think, encourage us to keep going.
It does, and that's why, you know, I mentioned also creating your own purpose statement, because once you coin it for yourself, this is something that, you know, is constantly ringing. For me, it's something constantly ringing in my mind. Impact, right? Impact. And so if I bring impact, that is what motivates me personally. But again, it's different for everybody.
Absolutely. No, I really loved that, creating that purpose statement and aligning it to the place that you work with, and ensuring that alignment is there. Katerina, we also have a question that's come live from our audience. You spoke a lot about relationships and connecting with students. How do we connect as effectively online as we do face-to-face?
So let's say the students are all online, right? And it also depends on the age group, right? So that there will be different techniques that you use with the younger students than with the oldest. And I must say, I fully understand that with the oldest, it can be it can be easier than with the youngest one, right? But I guess if we were to choose, if I were to choose, you know, a couple of points, the most important for me is that the students are talked to and they're connected with others. So and then the activities that you run in class include everybody. So for example, in the supplement, you will see an amazing resource that Institute for Positive Education had created, the brain breaks for Zoom. right? So simple activities that you can actually use when all of your students are online to raise the energy and the participation. Just as one example. Other examples, if you have the hybrid learning, how do we ensure that the student who is at home has a buddy in class who can actually help him with certain tasks? Or how do we ensure that he or she sees us? So and how can we recreate those restful moments for students? So when they're having lunch, can we connect our students who are at home to the students who are in class? And can they all have lunch together and chat about, random things? So things like that. I guess that's why in my presentation I try to give more of a direction. How do we design for the relationship as if we were in class, but at the same time using the technology that we can that we have at hand.
Thank you, Katrina. Another question we've got on the live chat. You spoke quite a bit about emotional coaching, which to me is a really, really important part of an education setting. And, labeling those emotions and helping the child link words to what they're feeling, recognizing all those emotions, labeling them and validating them. Now, the question here is, how would you go about carrying out emotional coaching for teachers in a school? Any ideas on how do you propose that we carry emotional coaching for teachers?
I guess the same way, right? So recognizing their feelings, validating them, labeling them. I mean, how often did someone come to me and say, I know that you seem to be upset, or you seem to be frustrated, let's talk it out. And to be honest, I'm fortunate to have colleagues who actually did that, right? But it's the same thing about just helping us to label, because once we name it, we tame it.
Yes, and that's absolutely true. And we need to do less of emotion dismissing and emotion disapproving and do more of this emotional coaching. Absolutely, Katrina. And yes, I think we need to be reminded as adults as well of those concepts. A question here from Gail. How do I ensure the kids keep their cameras on? Because you spoke a lot about, keeping the camera on for those connections between teacher and students and students and students. And I know from my own son, he's 15, he doesn't like turning on his camera.
Yeah.
So how can we encourage students to switch on their cameras and to be able to connect and be conscious of, and especially those that are self-conscious? How do we encourage that?
I guess with any class management, it's all about defining the rules at the very beginning, right? And defining the rules together with the class. So, dear class, when do you feel comfortable to switch on your camera? Right? We will have certain periods in a lesson where your camera will be a must. You don't have to keep it all the time, but when we do the activity XYZ, the camera is a must. So please be ready and dressed, right, to switch on that camera, because that is going to be expected of you. Of course, how do we then reprimand if the camera has not been switched on, right? They're already at home, right? But I guess it's all about persevering and trying, and again explaining why that camera should be on. Your friends want to see you, and this is the 10 minutes a day when you will see them and they will see you.
Yeah, I love that, explaining the purpose behind why that camera is on. Absolutely. I had a question for you. You said you mentioned the idea of wish you were here, where you capture an event in a picture. Could you explain that in a bit more detail, Katrina?
Yeah, so it's so the student, for example, is learning at home and they're doing an activity, but we don't see it. So we ask them, take a picture, or ask somebody to take a picture of you doing it, right? Or a picture of your work that you have created and post it. And yeah, just the wish you were here. If they don't feel comfortable to switch on the camera, for example, at least they can post a photo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And one final question from the audience, Katrina, comes from, oh, actually this is anonymous. Your suggestions, just wondered, are they designed for a specific age group? How would you shape some of those ideas for 16 to 19-year-olds?
Yeah, the suggestions are general. Of course, there are some things which will work better with older than with younger groups and vice versa. But I guess the emotional safety is for everybody, the emotional coaching, the language, planning and presence. So many of them are for everybody, right? Whatever age the students are, it's all about connections. And especially with the 16 to 19-year-olds, I would say that if I were to go to one age group, it would be, my presentation is more for like secondary students. And I must say, this summer I have been an online learner myself. I have been on a 6-week course on Zoom, and I have experienced, you know, building connections online. And I tell you what was the best thing there, the connections on Zoom after class, right? And that professor who was telling us in the beginning of a class, I'm just going to send you into breakout groups for 10 minutes just for chat. Right, that was great. So that and also there were two types of teachers. One type of teachers who were teaching us fully live, and type of teachers who were teaching us synchronously and asynchronously. And guess which class we actually felt more connected and had more satisfaction? The live class. Even though it was difficult to sit for 3 hours in front of the screen, I felt more satisfaction. I felt I gained more. So we all long that connection face to face.
Thank you, Katrina. And I'm just weary of the time. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much. Your strengths of curiosity, gratitude, and love really came through that presentation. And myself and the team at KHDA and everyone on this webinar, I'm sure, are giving you very, very loud cheer, Katerina, and are very grateful for your time and for putting together that presentation. And Magnus has also shared the supplement document in the chat. So thank you, Katerina, for preparing that. That just gives a bit more information to our audience members for further resources. So feel free to download that. And just before you all go, I just would love to get some feedback. If you can share the Menti.
Magnus, you're sharing from your end.
And I must say, Katrina, I loved how you used technology and what we're doing at the moment to create those connections with your students. Okay, so if you can all go back to menti.com and log on. If you're not,
now that you're sharing that from your screen.
I can share from my screen.
Oh, okay.
1 second.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Sorry, that's my fault. Sorry about that. Okay,
thank you.
So if you go to menti.com and use the code 5949077, and it would be great if you can just provide your feedback there. I'll just give you a moment. Overall, how satisfied were you with the quality of the content of the webinar, the structure of the webinar, the presenter and her preparedness in responding to questions? And I'll just give you a moment to complete that. Okay, and just moving on to the next question. What did you enjoy most about the webinar today? What new learnings would you take away from this? I'm certainly going to work on my purpose statement tonight. I feel I need to create a purpose statement, although it does change a bit, but yeah, that's something that I'm going to be doing this week, Katrina. So thank you for reminding us all about aligning with our purpose statements. So here we have our first comment. Well-being is something very natural for a teacher, and she does not do for any evidencing. The word impact, what do you want? What do you want it to last on your kids? And feel free, Katerina, to jump in and add any further comments.
Chris.
How do I?
Oh, Magnus, we can hear you. I enjoyed the positivity whilst taking lessons. So webinar was really great, and we should give 5 minutes free time for kids during lessons for their well-being.
Live teaching is more interactive, and we can have connections with online also. Yep.
The physical and psychological safety and those points that you made, Katerina, was a very crisp presentation. Really enjoyed the resources that you've provided.
Knowing that we are all in the same boat, absolutely. I think, you know, this is one of the aspects of self-compassion, right? Understanding that this is a bigger problem and that other people are dealing with it too.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone is dealing with something or another, and the way we deal with things might be different, but as you say, we're not alone. It's really important to reach out and make those connections and check in with people. Are you doing okay?
Yep. Remember the three words that define our life today: uncertainty, challenging, and interdependence. We can only do it together.
Absolutely. Very informative, taking a lot of this to use with my kids at school. The emotional well-being of the child and how to cater to their needs and build positive attitudes whilst learning online. Thank you very much to everyone for sharing those new learnings. And thank you, Katerina, for sharing your examples and the content and your story at Sunmark and Regent as well. Okay, and just before we end, I just wanted to bring your attention to the In This Together website. On this website, you will find a lot of free resources at your disposal. Feel free to go to the website and download any resources that you find interesting. There's a bunch of wellbeing resources as well that we have quality checked and made sure that they are at no cost to you. So that's another way of another resource platform for you. And just to let you know, we'll be running a wellbeing webinar once a week. So do keep your eye on this In This Together website, and to our wellbeing champions, we will also keep you informed of wellbeing webinars in future. Our next one is with Dubai College, and Mark Samways, who's the head of wellbeing there, will be sharing his story at Dubai College and what they do there as well.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, the listeners. Thank you, Team KHDA. I'm excited for more sessions from other speakers.
Fantastic. And just before we go, I would just wanting to share one last thing, and hopefully you can see this, but I don't know if the teachers online saw this. This is something we posted on our Twitter, and I think it really rings tune with the content that you presented here, Katrina, and being resilient. But I really love this post that our social media team put up. And, you know, we do recognize that it has been hard. We do recognize that there's been challenge after challenge. And we are so grateful for all the work that you're doing and just having that, you know, growth mindset with the children that you're teaching. I mean, that just really sums it up for me. So thank you very much to all our teachers and to the education community. You've been rock stars. And again, thank you, Katrina. Thank you to all our fantastic listeners for joining us today. We have recorded this session and you'll find a recording of it on in this Together website. So from my home to yours, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you and goodbye.
Next week. Bye.